everybody, my name is Evan, and I like to draw. And I'm also in the Easter spirit right about now, so I decided it's the perfect time to draw some peeps. To start things off, I can whip up a quick outline of the chick peep, and then go over that and trace it with much crisper lines that'll be part of the final drawing. Of course, making sure to add in his grotesquely oversized mouth and his little creepy dinosaur eye, along with a series of jagged teeth on the top and bottom jaws. Then after that, add in his tongue and give him those weird little fleshy bits that connect the mouth. Next up, I can move down to his legs, where I'll sketch out a few spider-like limbs. I'll only do 2 of these, and then I'll add in the others off camera because I'm bad at recording. And then I can go through and use that stencil to add the crisper outlines just like I did for the rest. And once that's done, I can go in and add some little boils and ruffles to his skin, and then I can also add in some weird little warts. Yeah, he's a lovely looking guy, isn't he? And that's the outline done, and onto the coloring. As for the coloring, I can start off with the bright pastel yellow that'll go all the way around him. Now, peeps do have weird little bits of marshmallow residue near the open part, so I can color in his mouth with that marshmallow white, and then I can put in little specks of yellow where the marshmallow and sugar bits would have been torn apart. Once that's done, I can choose his eye color, which will be a dark chocolatey brown, and give that to his eye and then his little spider feet. And then both teeth on the top and bottom rows get a worn down beige color. After that, we can add in the color for his tongue, which will be a toned down pastel pink. That'll go all the way throughout the tongue, and then I'll come back later and add in some shading. Speaking of shading though, I can select a darker yellow and then slap that all over the parts where the ruffles kind of fold over themselves and give depth to the little creepy marshmallow people. The way I'll do this is by adding little scratches and flicks of the color in one direction, so it gives it more of a sketchy type style. I do this in pretty much all of my drawings. But once the shading is done, I can then do the same with a different lighter color that'll give it some highlights on parts where it needs it. And then the final shading of the body would be to take a color that's very similar to the base and then just flick it randomly everywhere. This gives it an ever so slight difference and breaks up the monotoneness of one color. Is monotoneness a word? I don't even know. Now that the shading's done, I can work on adding this little sugar texture to the peeps. There are 2 good brushes I have options for. The one is called Confetti, which gives you random flicks in every direction, but the problem is it goes in different colors. The other one is Confetti 2, which is the same thing except it keeps it in one color. So I can use the second version of Confetti and then put little white flecks all over the peep to give it that sugary marshmallow look. Then after that I can go back to his little warts and scales and give them a darker color so they stand out more. Then I can add some shading to the chocolatey tips of his little spider legs by having white highlights at the top and darker highlights at the bottom. And then I can add the shading into the mouth, which will just be a series of darker colors going in lighter towards the middle. As for getting that marshmallowy texture on the inside, I can use a brush called Sponge and then lower the opacity to give it more shading in random areas, because apparently that's what this brush is fantastic at doing. And once that's done, I can add little flicks of lighter white into the mouth. And then finally add the shading to the teeth and the tongue. The teeth would be a lot like the legs, where they get darker highlights at the bottom and then lighter highlights towards the top. And after that, that's the shading finished, and I can move on to adding the shadows. I'll do this by lowering a solid black color to 28 opacity, and then just overlaying all the parts of the picture that overlap. And then the final thing to do for this peep is change all the black outlines into colors that more so match what they're on top of. For example, the yellow will get a darker, almost brown type yellow, and then the little chocolatey legs will get a darker brown. This is the same for the teeth and the tongue. And then that's pretty much everything on the chick peep finished, and we can now move on to the bunny. For the bunny, I'm going to start with a sketch of what I want it to look like, giving it that skull crawler look from the Kong movies. But anyway, I can then start by drawing in the eye, which would be a bunch of little spikes and then a super angry half circle in the middle. Then I can give him the top jaw of his mouth, being sure to add the nose and little wrinkles around that too, and then connecting it all the way back to the beginning. Then I can add in the bottom jaw, and then I can add in the ears at the top. As for connecting his head to his body, I can give him a neck, which would be super long and squiggly, and then I can add in some uncomfortable looking veins all along it. Once that's done, I can go back to the mouth and add in his teeth and tongue. And then I can start work on his arms by giving him really massive forearms, and then ending his elbow in some sort of spike that connects back to the front. Then I can add in his equally massive biceps and shoulder to connect everything nicely to the neck. For the neck, I can give it some weird little triangle bumps that kind of make it look like a spinal cord, like he's malnourished and he's just a skeleton jacked bunny peep thing. Ugh. Then for the feet, I can give him those classic dinosaur toes by giving him massive claws, starting with those first, and then drawing the feet around them. This is a nice little trick that just makes him look normal most of the time. I can add the 3 toes in the front and 1 little one in the back, and then add some sort of scale texture that kind of looks like he's got more detail to him. Then I can draw in the rest of his stomach, above the arm behind him, and then add in some little lines that represent his ribcage. Now I'm trying to keep these designs somewhat accurate, and regular bunny peeps just end in a giant little bottom, so I can do the same for my super weird monster peep, but his will look more like the back of a spider than a normal little marshmallow thing. After that, I can add in a bunch of veins everywhere, because he wasn't weird enough looking, so here, have some really strange looking veins. And once those are finished, that's the outline done, and onto the coloring. For the coloring, it'll be pretty much the same as the chick, but just with a blue instead of a yellow all around it to start with. Then I can give that chocolatey brown color to his eye, nose, and claws. And then the tongue will get the same color as the chick peep, and the teeth will also be the same, and then the inside of the marshmallow mouth will also be the same. After that, we can add the shading, which would be a dark blue all over the spots that would overlap and have shading. For example, the neck and the head will have some shading where they connect. Then I can just go through and add this first layer all over the entire drawing. And once all the dark areas have been filled in, I can go back with a lighter blue and put those in all the light areas. Then, just like before, to add the sugar texture, I'll use the same brush as the chick peep and sprinkle it all over this bunny. Then I'll also use the same texture, brush, and blend mode for the mouth to get the marshmallow look, and then the teeth and tongue will get the same shading as the drawing before. Then for all the chocolate bits, I can start by giving them light brown highlights anywhere. This goes for the eye, the nose, and the claws. And then that's all the shading, so I can move on to the shadows, which is the same process with the lowered opacity brush and just putting it over any things that overlap. Although this time I added it over the eye. Ooh, it's so shiny. And once all the shadows are done, I can go back and change the outlines, but this time instead of yellow, it'll be blue. You know the drill by now. Although, for all the little scale textures, I'll give them the same chocolatey color, which I think is a nice touch. And once all the outlines are changed, that's us done here, and onto the gallery. Well, if you're watching this video around Easter time, then happy Easter. And if you're watching this video in the middle of July, I don't know, goodbye to Peeps. Anyway, thanks for sticking out till the end, guys, and I'll see you later.